Something extraordinary is happening in the world of tennis right now, and many people still haven't realized just how big it truly is. Because what we're witnessing is not just another young player climbing the rankings. It's not simply another promising prospect breaking through, and it's definitely not just another tournament storyline. What we are watching is the beginning of a shift, a genuine shift in the power structure of women's tennis. And right at the center of that shift stands a 20-year-old Filipina who is rewriting expectations every time she steps onto a court. Her name is Eala, and if you haven't been paying attention to her journey yet, this might be the moment when everything changes. Because on March 14, 2026, something electric began building inside the stadium at the Hard Rock Stadium during the Miami Open. The tournament had barely begun. The draw had just been finalized. The stadium lights were warming up for another year of world-class tennis. Yet, the buzz circulating around the grounds wasn't centered on the defending champion. It wasn't focused on the world number one, and it wasn't about any of the established giants of the tour. Instead, conversations kept drifting toward one name. One player, a 20-year-old from the Philippines who walked into Miami carrying momentum powerful enough to shake the foundations of the sport. To understand why this moment feels so monumental, you have to start with the detail that stunned observers the moment the draw was announced. Eala didn't arrive in Miami as a hopeful qualifier, fighting just to survive the first round. She didn't enter as a wild-card underdog, hoping to steal a brief moment of glory. She arrived as the official 32nd seed, and that single number carried enormous meaning, because it meant something historic had just happened. For the first time ever, a Filipina player had entered a WTA 1000 main draw with a first-round bye. Let that sink in for a moment. While dozens of other players were grinding through brutal qualifying matches, while they were battling through exhausting rallies under the Florida sun, while they were fighting simply to earn a place in the main draw, Eala was resting, recovering, training on the main courts, preparing the way elite contenders prepare. That is the privilege reserved for seeded players, and now it belonged to her. Inside the tournament grounds, people noticed immediately. Practice sessions that would normally attract a handful of spectators suddenly began drawing crowds. Fans gathered around the courts just to watch her warm up. Security staff quietly adjusted barriers because more spectators than expected were showing up to catch a glimpse of the rising star from Manila. Tournament officials didn't need anyone to explain what was happening. They could see the shift unfolding in real time, because Eala wasn't just another seeded player. She had become an event. But the real reason this moment feels so seismic actually began a few weeks earlier, far away in the California desert, at the Indian Wells Open. At one of the most prestigious tournaments outside the Grand Slams, Eala delivered a performance that left the tennis establishment stunned. She stormed her way to the round of 16. And along the way, she faced one of the biggest names in the sport, Coco Gauff. What happened next wasn't the script anyone expected. From Turkey, the opening games, Eala attacked with fearless aggression. Her forehand carved angles that forced Gauff deep behind the baseline. Her return game turned defensive rallies into sudden counterattacks, point after point. The pressure mounted. The tempo changed. The match transformed into something far more uncomfortable than many had anticipated. And eventually, the contest ended in a moment that sent shockwaves across tennis media. Gauff retired from the match, not because it was easy, not because the outcome was obvious, but because Eala had pushed the battle into territory where even one of the sport's biggest stars could no longer maintain control. When the dust settled, Alex walked away with far more than just a victory. She earned more than $115,000 in prize money, pushing her career earnings beyond $1.6 million before the age of 21. That number matters more than many people realize. Because in professional tennis, financial independence changes everything. It means a player can build their own team, their own training environment, their own travel schedule, their own vision for the future. It means their career no longer depends on waiting for opportunities from the system, and Alex Eala has clearly reached that level. She is no longer a developing project. She is no longer simply a hopeful prospect. She is a fully independent force on the professional tour. And the people who run the sport are paying attention. But the Indian Wells story didn't end when she left the desert. In fact, the next chapter might have been even more revealing. Just days after her run, Alex traveled north to Beaverton, Oregon, to visit the global headquarters of Nike. For most athletes, a brand visit is quiet. A few meetings, a photo shoot, maybe a quick tour. But reports from inside the building suggested something very different happened. According to insiders, the reception she received felt closer to the treatment reserved for sporting icons, the same hallways that have welcomed legends like Serena Williams, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan were reportedly lined with displays celebrating Eala's rise. And one phrase appeared again and again across the visuals: history in full bloom. The symbolism was powerful. Cherry blossoms, Filipino cultural motifs. A visual story, connecting the rise of a young athlete with the identity of an entire nation. Then came the rumor that set the tennis internet buzzing. Whispers began circulating that Nike was developing a signature apparel collection for Alex Eala, inspired by the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines. Think about the significance of that. Signature collections are not created casually. Brands reserve them for athletes they believe will define an era, for icons who transcend rankings, for players capable of carrying the cultural weight of a global sport. And if those reports are true, Nike believes Alex Eala could become exactly that kind of athlete. Now shift your attention back to Miami, because this is where the story becomes truly fascinating. As the 32nd seed, Eala's position in the draw places her on a potential collision course with the world number 1. And the timing of that possibility couldn't be more dramatic. Because the last time these two met on these very courts, something unforgettable happened. At the 2025 Miami Open, Alex Eala defeated the top-ranked player in a stunning match that ended 6-2, 7-5. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a fluke. It was a fearless performance from a teenager who stepped onto the court with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Now she returns to the same tournament, same stadium, same surface. But the circumstances have changed completely. She's no longer a teenager chasing recognition. She's a seasoned professional with momentum, financial independence, and one of the fastest-growing fan bases in the entire sport. Meanwhile, some of the top players in the draw are arriving in Miami under very different conditions. The world number 1 is coming off a difficult loss to Elina Svitolina at Indian Wells. Confidence isn't as unshakable as it once appeared. Observers have noticed cracks that weren't visible a year ago. And inside the practice courts in Miami, those watching Eala train say something about her energy looks different, sharper, more focused, more dangerous. There is a quiet intensity in her game now. The kind of determination that comes from someone who knows exactly what they're capable of achieving. But beyond the tennis itself, there's another powerful force driving this moment: culture. Because every match Alex plays is being watched by millions of people across the Philippines. For decades, Filipino sports fans dreamed of seeing one of their own compete at the very highest level of global tennis. Now that dream has a face. Her practice clips regularly explode across social media. Her matches generate audience numbers that rival and sometimes surpass players ranked far above her. Tournament organizers have noticed her matches are being moved to larger courts. Prime scheduling slots. More television coverage. Not because of sentiment. Not because of charity, but because the numbers make the decision obvious. People want to watch Eala play. And in professional sports, audience demand is the most powerful force of all. When fans choose a new star, the sport eventually has no choice but to follow, which brings us to one of the most fascinating conversations happening quietly behind the scenes in tennis right now. For years, women's tennis has been marketed around a relatively small circle of superstar names. Broadcast deals, scheduling decisions, marketing campaigns. Everything built around a carefully managed narrative about who the stars are supposed to be. But Eala is disrupting that narrative, and she's doing it in the most unstoppable way possible. Not through controversy, not through complaints, but through pure performance. Every victory she earns makes it harder to keep her out of the spotlight. Every viewership spike makes it harder to ignore her influence. She is dismantling the architecture of her own marginalization through excellence. And that might be the most powerful storyline unfolding in tennis today. Then there is the phenomenon known among her supporters as the Pine Army. Eala's fans are unlike anything else currently on the tour. They organize watch parties across the Philippines. They flood social media during her matches. They track her practice sessions. They celebrate every victory like a national holiday. Their energy travels with her from tournament to tournament. When she walks onto a court thousands of miles away from home, she still hears the chants, still sees the flags, still feels the support of an entire country behind her. For many Filipino fans, Eala represents something bigger than tennis. She represents possibility. She represents a reminder that athletes from the Philippines can compete and win on the biggest stages in the world. And right now, as the Miami Open unfolds under the lights of Hard Rock Stadium, the next chapter of that story is about to be written. Because the momentum she carries into this tournament feels different, stronger, more dangerous, more inevitable. The question surrounding Eala is no longer whether she belongs among the elite players of the sport. That question has already been answered. The real question now is much bigger. How far can she go? Because if the trajectory continues, if the confidence keeps building, if the support of an entire nation keeps fueling her rise, the young woman from Manila might not just be breaking barriers, she might be reshaping the future of women's tennis itself. And if that future truly is unfolding right now, then the world is about to learn something the Philippines may already know. Eala isn't just a rising star. She may be the beginning of a new era, relentless, passionate, organized. They wake up in the middle of the night to watch matches across time zones. They fill social media with analysis, statistics, and unwavering support. Some even travel across continents just to sit in the stands wrapped in Philippine colors. Together, this loyal community has transformed a rising tennis player into something far greater than a prospect. She has become a symbol, a cultural icon. Now that devoted fan base is watching Miami with growing excitement. The conditions for a breakthrough run have never been stronger. Eala arrives with the best seeding of her career, a level of financial independence that allows her to focus purely on tennis, and the backing of global sponsors who believe in her potential. She also carries something even more powerful, proof that she belongs among the elite. Her stunning victory over Coco Gauff in the desert was more than just an upset. It was a message to the tennis world, a signal that the next generation of women's tennis may already be stepping forward. For Eala, it wasn't about shock value. It was confirmation of what she and her supporters have believed all along. Now the tour shifts to Miami Open, March 2026. The draw is set. The stadium lights are ready. And standing in the center of the conversation is a 20-year-old from the Philippines who was once expected to be only a promising story. Instead, she has become the story. The world's top players are watching closely. The establishment is beginning to adjust. Millions of fans are waiting to see what comes next. Because what unfolds in Miami may be more than another match. Could mark the moment the balance of power in women's tennis begins to shift. And if you have followed Alex Eala's journey from the very beginning, you know something important. This moment never felt impossible. The only question was when it would arrive. Now, the answer is Miami.